Hello and welcome to the British Dapper, and today we're talking about using a watch to stand out. So when it comes to wristwatches, admittedly in this day and age you don't necessarily need a wristwatch or a pocket watch because you can always tell the time by using your mobile phone. This video is not going to address pocket watches in any detail. However, we are going to look at wristwatches and the use of wristwatches to create interest and to make you stand out amongst others. I'm going to show you my small personal collection of wristwatches. They're not the most expensive watches out there, but I think they will help illustrate how to use wristwatches to an advantage. So it's understandable that you can go out there and purchase Rolex watches as an example, and you can spend an absolute fortune on a number of different brands. But if we look at Rolex, is one of the most popular brand names most people can relate to. And you've got the Oyster Perpetual as an example. That's a lovely watch and it's quite expensive. There's also the Submariner, which is another classic watch from Rolex. The Datejust is another classic Rolex watch, and a lot of people aspire to own one or purchase one. And the GMT Master is another classic Rolex watch. And they are really quite expensive watches to own. And I have no issues with people that want to purchase such a watch or can afford to or aspire to buying one of those watches. They are great timepieces, and it's all about generating style and feeling good about yourself when you're wearing a watch. So for example, the cheaper version of the Tudor Pepsi as an example, that is still in its own right quite an expensive watch, and is a really good timepiece in its own right. There are other similar watches. Tag Heuer is another one, classic named range of wristwatches and timepieces, and historically a very good brand to purchase. Then of course you have the Breitling series of watches, lovely timepieces, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with purchasing them at all. When it comes to actually using watches, I try to use them on a sliding scale. So from the most formal, for example, I have here, this is quite a rare Omega watch. And you'll notice it's gold with a black strap. So this would be probably the most formal of watches I would wear. Black, no different to the shoes, and gold being precious metal. Then it goes down to less formal watches to be worn. So for example, here we have Patek Philippe, and you can see it's on a brown leather strap. So it is one of those desirable watches, and another good timepiece. So there are, in between that, there's a range of different metals and different colours that I would employ. So in my small collection, we start off with gold watches. So in this case, I have a gold watch that is quite an old one. It's a Pulsar. I keep it. It's a lovely timepiece. I've had it since 1987. Keeps good time, and it is probably my most formal of watches that I wear. I have another one here which is unusual, and this is a Michael Kors watch, and it is rose gold, and a lovely timepiece. I think it's one of those pieces that quite a large watch, so it's not as formal as the smaller one I've just shown you. And it stands out because of the rose gold. And then when it comes to less formal watches and still having a gold one, then I have this one here, which is a fossil gold watch. Lovely timepiece, but as you can see it's rather large. This doubles up as a wall clock. So this is probably the most informal watch I would wear. So this would be very casual outfits I would wear this with. Going down the scale, then the next one would be silver or steel watch. So in this case I have a little watch here, nothing special, but it's a plain watch face, yeah, not coloured, and so it's quite a middle of the range sort of watch. Another one that I would use, which is this one, which is a little bit more square, an offset shape, and does create a little bit of interest. And again, this is a stainless steel, polished stainless steel band. So when it comes to a little bit more informal, then I start to introduce colour. So in this case, the face of the watch, the colour has changed to a bright blue. This is an Adidas watch, very unusual. Again, these are not expensive watches, but they do create interest, and every now and again somebody will comment on the watch. So from there I then go down to brown leather strap watches. So in my collection, one of my pretty much go-to watches when it comes to informal, so I'm wearing maybe my tweed jacket, pair of cavalry twill, or maybe a pair of chinos, then I'll use this watch here. As you can see, it's an unusual shape, square watch, nice leather strap. Now believe it or not, this watch was £10 from Burton's. Now it's nowhere near the same scale of money as this one, the Petit Philippe, but it still generates the same sort of level of interest. Now this is where it becomes quite interesting, because although this one is worth thousands and this one is only worth £10, not being funny, at a distance of say 20 feet, I don't think many people will be able to pick out the difference. And it just goes to show, the main thing I would focus on is, does it tell the time? Does it work? Does it generate some sort of interest? So this one, I would suggest, taking the price away from it, would generate more interest because it's square and it's got an unusual face on it and the numbers, compared to this one, which is in a sense much blander and not necessarily as good looking, although the mechanism is where the money is actually being spent. Again, £10 Burton's. I've had this for probably about 20 odd years and it's never let me down. Another one, slightly lighter in colour, and this one again, a brown watch, but we're including a blue face on this. So as you can see, quite a nice watch, and in an informal setting it does get some interest. Again, it's not that expensive. I don't judge my watches on the price, and I don't judge other people's watches on the price. If you want a bit of fun and it's casual, then I use this monster, which is probably about the same size as some of my old diving watches when I was in the army. quite a big watch, and it's a Hugo Boss. Very basic watch strap, but great for that informal look. Now when it comes to actually having a bit of fun and doing something which is more leisure orientated, then I use this watch here. So as you can see, it has normal hands on it, and it has a stopwatch facility, and I use this because if it gets damaged, it's not going to cost me a fortune to replace. And this is one of my watches I used for mountaineering back in the day, and so if it gets a scratch or anything like that, it's not a major issue. But it's a good watch to time a route by, gives you an alarm, and you can set the timer on it. So it's a good watch to use for that type of activity. And that brings me on to the idea or perception that people have about watches. Now I understand there are aficionados out there that really do know their watches, and I am not taking anything away from them at all. What I dislike about people that are watch snobs is that they need to vent their opinions on other people and the watches that they use, and they have to put it on a pecking order. Now, my watches don't cost a lot of money. I can't afford really expensive watches, and the Omega and the Petite Philippe, they're not my watches, they're a friend's watches who's lent me these to show in this presentation. But again, if you can afford them, that's great. I would not take that away from anybody. But what I do object to is where people have to show this in your face to show you the name on it, the brand on it. There's no need for that, and it's very ungentlemanly to do that, because it's not about the brand, it's about the person that's wearing the watch. So if you're waving your wristwatch around, trying to get people's attention that you wear a Rolex watch, rather than being a nice person and being polite and having good conversations with people, no matter what watch you wear, you're not going to create friends or be able to mix with people. We lecture out the way, but I think you get where I'm coming from here. So I understand that if I'm wearing this watch as an example, that's only £10, people will, once they know it's worth £10, potentially criticise me for wearing it. But the amount of people that don't know this have made significant comments on this, all positive comments about, that's a really nice watch, that must have cost you a lot of money. But it's the way it's presented, and what you wear that watch with carries it off. But the idea is it sparks conversation to start with. And that's the whole purpose of using a wristwatch in that fashion. All wristwatches tell the time, and in this day and age, they all tell the time really well. Gone are the days where a watch would lose 10 or 5 minutes in a day. I mean, nowadays, even the cheapest of watches will keep the time within seconds over a day or several days. So you're not really going to gain anything by spending a lot of money purely on the grounds of being accurate on time. But by introducing something with a little bit of character, that stimulates conversation potentially when somebody sees it. And that's what the whole purpose of this video is about today. It's just about giving you some ideas to generate conversation or to wear with an ensemble. So with this as an example, it's quite a formal look, then potentially I would be wearing something like this. Or something like this to wear with this ensemble, because it's quite a formal look. If I'm wearing jeans or something like that, then the chances are I'm going to be wearing something like these. And if I'm going to be wearing, for example, a tweed jacket and a pair of chinos, then maybe something along these lines, just to create a little bit of interest. Now let's suggest that you've got a lovely watch, but you haven't got many others, and you want to use it for a different type of event. This gave me the idea when I was looking at these Breitling watches. Just by changing the strap on the watch, you could create a completely different look. So for example, if you had a gold plated watch and it has a gold strap, then you could change that for a black leather strap and you get a different look altogether. Or even a brown leather strap fitted and you create a different look. Personally, my favourite watch is Cartier, and it's a tank watch. Historically, I've always wanted one of these, or aspired to having one of these. But you're talking about the price of a small car or a second-hand car to just put on a watch. And whilst I love the idea of having one, practicalities mean I'd wear something a lot cheaper. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give us a thumbs up. If you'd like to subscribe, then please feel free to do so. I'm interested in your points of view. I have no axe to grind at either end of the range of watches. If you want to spend 100,000 on a watch, or if you want to spend £10 on a watch, that's perfectly fine by me. But I would be interested in knowing what your opinions are. So if you have any ideas about what you'd like to see in our next lot of videos, and you have some ideas, jot them down below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. You never know, they might be in our next video. We also have a Buy Me a Coffee page, so if you'd like to make a contribution, then please feel free to do so. I'll put the link down below so you can make that contribution. So until next time, take care.